So while Bob and the Mandalay were staying at the original post office, they were fixing up the dilapidated officers' mess quarters. Now it's the 8th of May. The wedding's to take place the next day. So Bob and the Mandalay go back into Ahmednagar for the wedding. After the wedding, they come back. They stay at the post office as they continue fixing up the officers' mess quarters. Then they move over there. When it's cleaned enough, it's fixed up enough, it's not going to fall down on them. They go, and it was all clean. That later that day, they unrolled the bedding, and under one of the bed rolls was a snake. They didn't know how it got there because they just finished cleaning the place when it was there. Baba said, "This place no good, full of snakes and scorpions," and they hightailed it back over to the post office. Now, at that time, they had been talking about a permanent place, and Baba had said that maybe they'll stay here, but they're also thinking of other places, very beautiful places. The Mandalay were suggesting places with trees and water and that kind of stuff. Here, there's hardly a tree in sight, hardly a bush in sight. There's a photograph in our Meherabad Mandalay hall. I'll show you, and it shows what it's like. Very, very beautiful. So when now, near the end of May, Baba was going to travel. They traveled for like 7 months. But just before they left, Baba had one of his Mandalay nervous write on a board, Meherabad. Abad means establishment, flourishing. And he hammered it on 2 posts between the post office and the railroad tracks. So even though Baba said this place was no good because of snakes and scorpions, he named it Meherabad. Over here, you can see a lot of graves. These are the men Mandalay. Baba had specified where each one of his Mandalay is to be buried and whether they're to be cremated or buried. And at the far end, on the other side, you'll see an open grave, and that's for Muhammad. It's not a straight grave because Muhammad's not straight, and the casket they made is not straight. It's sort of like at an angle. The reason it's open is because the first time Muhammad, they thought he would be gone any moment, so they quickly dug it. Well, he totally recovered. So they covered it up again. They covered it up. Then another time, he was literally on the brink of death. So they dug it up again. Totally recovered. They covered it up again. The third time, they just left it open. And he's been close to it at least a couple of other times since then. The Judy here at Meherabad is lit on the 12th of every month. Baba was at the Judy a few times, but I'm only going to tell 2 of the stories because of the time factor with the tour. The first time that he had the Judy lit here, and then why it's on the 12th of every month. Now, this whole region at one time was a forest, but over time the trees were chopped down, and a lot during the British time. And people didn't have an understanding of ecology then. They didn't know the devastation that happens to an area. This whole region became a drought-stricken area. Famine was always a threat among the villages around here. Rain was seldom, and they depended on livelihood. It had not rained for a while, the crops were failing, the wells were going down. The people of the villages around this area were worried. They came to Baba. This was on the 10th of November, 1925. They came to Baba and they pleaded with him to please help. Please help. He consoled them. He sent them back home. That evening at 11 o'clock at night, when he had the pit dug, he had the Judy lit. Immediately, clouds began to gather. It rained heavy monsoon rains for the next 15, 16 hours. So, of course, the famine was averted, the crops were saved. That was the first time. Now, why it's on the 12th of every month, it was the end of December 1941. Yukazni Maharaj dropped his physical body. Baba had been up the hill. On the 12th of January 1942, a few days later, Baba had his table house moved back to this neem tree over here. And he had a photograph of Ukosny and a photograph of himself placed on it. When he came down the hill, he bowed down to both, and he had the Judy lit at 7 o'clock that night. Baba had also said that from that day on the 12th of every month, the Judy must be lit here. Baba wanted a room here in Meherabad that he'd be his own for his seclusion work. And so he had the Jopti built. We'll talk about it in a minute when we get over to there. Jopti means hut. Baba named it. He wanted to have trees and plants, flowers around it. Now, up until recently, when a great source of water was found behind the Samadhi, Peter Booth was boring for wells, found a great source, massive planting everywhere, flowers. Before we used to have to be very selective where the flowers were in Meherabad for the water. But now we're planting bushes and flowers everywhere. Well, up until then, we had an unbelievable problem with cows and donkeys and sheep and goats and stuff. They come and eat anything that was edible. You can imagine in Baba's time when there was hardly anything in sight. But Baba wanted around the Jopti, he wanted to have jasmine trees and that sort of stuff. So in order to protect them and keep them around, he had a fence put around it. The fence is now gone, but the gate is still here. That is the gate that's under the Meherabad sign.